Hello everyone, Lunar Warfare. Welcome to my guide for the VGO, otherwise known as the Vickers K in Battlefield 5. The VGO is the new medium machine gun for the support kit, which was introduced in the Overture Tide of War update. It is unlocked through the Overture assignments, which can take you anywhere from 10 minutes to a few days to complete, based on your proficiency with the game and how hard you work towards that end goal. I've already tried the gun extensively today, and since it doesn't play that differently from the rest of the MMGs, as you'll be able to tell later in the guide, I feel confident enough to give you my opinion on it and create this in-depth guide for those that want to try out the weapon once they unlock it. Before we really get started though, a quick disclaimer for the MMG weapon group, as per usual. The medium machine guns in Battlefield 5, the MG34, the MG42, and now the VGO, are incredibly powerful weapons. They come with a huge downside, however. This downside is the fact that you are unable to ADS, which means aim down sight, unless you have your bipod deployed. This will not only cause your entire playstyle to shift to a more defensive or slow one by necessity, but also cause quite some frustration, as the bipod system in Battlefield 5 is at the moment broken in many ways. The Overture update has fixed some of the bipod issues, but definitely hasn't addressed the majority of them. If you want a comprehensive list of issues that exist with the bipod system, please refer to my MG42 guide, which you can find on my channel, or in the description down below, or in the annotation that I'll be playing right now. If you're prone to giving into your frustrations, want a gun to work 100% of the time, or want a run and gun kind of playstyle, this weapon in the entire weapon group of MMGs is very likely not for you. That disclaimer aside, let's finally get into the guide. As previously stated, the VGO is by far and away one of the most powerful guns in the entire game, which is also reflected by its stats. It comes in with a huge 830 rounds per minute fire rate, which puts it squarely in the middle among the other MMGs. You will see that there's somewhat of a trend for this weapon, as it is balanced to be a bridge between the MG34 and the MG42. Since that is the case, I'll be comparing it to the MG42 quite a lot during this guide to give you a rough idea of its intended playstyle and place in the game. The base ammo count of the VGO is a solid 60 rounds per belt, which is definitely acceptable for a base fire rate of 830. You'll be able to fire the gun for a little over 4 seconds with the base ammo count and fire rate. Both of those are of course upgradable. Its control and accuracy stats are moderately low, but that is quite deceiving, due to the requirement of having to deploy the bipod before being able to really use the gun to begin with. You should be able to easily control the recoil most of the time, regardless of tap, burst or full auto fire at any range. But of course, those are only the base stats. So let's take a look at the specialization tree for the VGO. There are, as per usual, two types of VGO setups that you can specialize in. The first is a setup which will increase the rate of fire from 830 to a familiar 981, but will not allow you to upgrade the ammo capacity. The second, conversely, is the one that will allow you to upgrade the ammo capacity from 60 to 100 per belt. This ammo upgrade is not as huge as an increase as it is for the MG42, which goes from 50 to 250, nor is the fire upgrade as big of an increase as it is for the MG42 either, which goes from 981, the number we go to with the VGO, if we decide to go with that side of the tree of course, to the highest fire rate in the game of 1200. The choice here in my opinion is clearly favored towards the second due to one simple reason. If you want an MMG that has a 981 round fire rate, just go with the MG42. There is no point in upgrading a completely different gun to the exact same fire rate and thus spend 3 to 4 specializations just to get the base of another weapon. I can only recommend the armor upgrade increase, as it will make the gun its own entity, instead of a worse copy of the MG42. The ammo increase, on the other hand, is definitely a great upgrade to choose from as well, as additional bullets for a belt are always a welcome addition to the MMGs. The only time you're likely to die is when you set up and when you need to reload after all. Increasing the time you can fire before that crucial moment comes is a big upside. In conclusion, I personally prefer to go with the ammo upgrade, as I love to flank opponents, deny areas, and like not having to reload after every burst. But of course, you're free to try out the two different options that I'll be presenting to form your own opinions on the matter. For my setup, I like to take the recoil buffer in the first row, as the weapon has quite the huge amount of recoil despite the bipod. The increased reload speed is honestly not that great of a choice either, in my opinion, as the reload speed isn't that low to begin with, and with the ammo upgrade you will be able to choose the timing of your reload more freely. As such, you shouldn't have to rely on the increased speed of reloading to keep you in the fight. There might be an argument that can be made for the increased reload speed if you decide to go with a fire rate increase, but since I personally would never recommend that upgrade to begin with, I don't see a huge point in the reload speed increase. Feel free to try it out for yourselves though, and let me know which one you prefer. The second and third rows, on the other hand, are where our previously two mentioned choices come in. On the left side, we have the first setup, which will increase the rate of fire to 981, as well as lower your muzzle flash, which will lower your visibility while firing. The muzzle is definitely an upgrade that can be useful in certain situations, but more often than not, it doesn't really make a difference whether you have it or not. On the right side, we have the second setup, which will increase your ammo capacity to 100 bullets per belt, as well as reducing the amount of horizontal recoil by quite a bit, which will transform this gun into something of a laser rifle. With this particular upgrade tree choice, you are very accurate, even at long distances. As these are mutually exclusive, and you cannot mix and match either of these, you need to nail down your gameplay choices here. The first setup is for those among you that, for whatever reason, need another base version of the MG42. The VGO actually feels like the base version of the MG42 with this upgrade, except it has a tiny bit less recoil. On the flip side, you're also greeted with a lot less meaty of a sound when shooting, which is a huge downside, as we all know. Nothing can really beat the sound of the MG42 makes when you set up and let it rain on the enemy. That said, it is an option for the people that don't like that sound and want a tiny bit better recoil version of the base MG42, I guess. Well, whatever. The second setup is for those among you that, like me, and pretty much everyone else, favor an original weapon design and an actual upgrade to the gun itself. With your 100 round belt, you'll be able to decimate squads with ease, flank your enemies, and lay it right into them. This is probably the intended way of speccing out the gun, due to the previously mentioned close similarities between the VGO 981 version and the base MG42. Following that, I take the horizontal recoil reduction as well as the increased ammo capacity on row 2 and 3 respectively. For the last row, I normally go for the reduced overheat upgrade, as especially with the 100 round belt, it's possible to overheat your weapon multiple times before getting through the whole belt without it. The incendiary bullets, which will double the damage of your VGO against airplanes, are also a potentially potent option. Especially with the slight nerfs to planes, this could be a devastating option to choose on maps that have a lot of planes, such as Hamato and Narvik. As such, I would recommend trying out the incendiary bullets on plane-heavy maps, just to see if you enjoy the playstyle. But for maps without planes, as well as people that don't like the mobile AA playstyle, the overheat reduction is more than an adequate option to choose from, and my personal favorite between the two. The optics you can choose for the VGO all work perfectly fine. Feel free to try out whichever ones you like best and just stick with those. There's not really any ones that are straight up terrible. Personally, I take the A sight on all my support guns, as you know. I like the slight 1.25x magnification, and with the VGO's insanely low recoil, it helps with getting those long-range headshots lined up. The gadgets I like to use with the VGO is the AT grenade pistol, which I commonly use to open small flanking opportunities, as well as destroying annoying pieces of fortification. I also choose to go with a fire grenade to cover my own retreats or cover an area that I might want to push towards, so that I can get enough time to set up my bipod before the enemy can come around the corner. I always go with the ammo pouch over the crate as well, as people still rarely look for the crates and rather scream at you to throw pouches at them. As for the playstyle of the VGO, it is most effective at pretty much every range once set up. Due to your inherently lower recoil compared to the MG42, you are effective even at long distances. I've killed quite the large amount of recons and assaults that thought they were safe from my lead-filled wrath near the edges of the map. They were obviously wrong. The fire rate is not as high as the MG42's, and as such, you need to set up properly and make sure to land the first hit on recons, as you cannot duel them as you can with the MG42. Oftentimes you will trade kills with them, where you would have gotten the kill with the MG42's slightly higher fire rate instead. As such, you want to dig yourself into a spot that has a lot of cover from the sides, so that you can only get shot from the front. That will hopefully give you enough time to realize the incoming danger and start shooting at the recon before they have time to line up the shot. This should win you the fight 9 out of 10 times. Hopefully. You can use this gun on any map in pretty much every circumstance, as long as you know what you're doing, as is usual with the MMGs. To that degree, similarly as with the MG42, always have a plan in play to get from one position to the next. Think about the possible areas that you might fall under fire from and try to minimize the possibility of that happening. You don't have the luxury you normally have when you carry around your trusty LMG or assault rifle to just open fire on anyone running into your field of vision. To that degree, getting into a squad with a recon or a medic that can cover your advance with the smoke grenade can be a huge benefit. You don't necessarily need to find a super coordinated squad or even a squad to begin with. Just keep an eye out for friendly medics and recons that are trying to push a position and follow their smokes. This gives you the best possible cover to set up with in the entire game. Choose your setup spots with the previously mentioned side covers in mind. Always try to have at least one side covered by a wall or any other hard cover, and try to be unpredictable or undodgeable. As such, set up in areas where few teammates are nearby, as they will draw the enemy's recons and assaults attention towards you before you even get a chance to start firing. Also try to overlook critical junctions in the map in a way that isn't obvious. That means don't just lay down in an open corridor of aerodrome, but instead lie outside looking into the corridor, for example. Right next to a wall, lying prone on the floor is often a better cover than you might expect. As long as you don't move, most players will overlook your presence entirely. Remember to not be afraid to just hold down the left click. With your 100 round magazine, the machine gunner perk, you'll easily shoot through smoke, kill enemies that are quick peeking from behind cover, and snipe people across the map due to the ease of applying the suppression status effect and thusly your 3D mark for aim. Keep in mind though that the 3D mark has recently been nerfed in the Overture update, as it now doesn't appear through medic and recon created smoke anymore. As such, just keep firing at locations into the smoke, where you suspect an enemy might be, and look for hit markers instead. At long range, if accuracy is required, try to feather your trigger a little bit, to go with the 10 to 15 round bursts. As accurate as the VGO might be with the reduced recoil upgrades and the bipod deployed, you're still firing about 880 rounds per minute on full auto. So maybe try not to do that too much in long range. It can definitely work, as the weapon is extremely accurate, but you will rarely get the chance to hold down for long before a recon catches your position via the traces. Once you start to become more familiar with the time required to get into ADS after a full sprint, feel free to be more aggressive. The VGO can absolutely be used on offensive pushes, though not as effective as the MG42 if done correctly. Your rate of fire will allow you to beat most things in close to medium distance as long as you don't take free damage. Sprint in, slide or drop prone, and start spraying at the enemy while trying to get into ADS. Prioritize cover as much as possible, as you will likely beat anyone trying to push you, as long as they're ADS'd and set up. Remember to pre-fire, you have enough ammo in the belt to do that. Also remember that you can always semi-ADS with the gun while standing or running to tighten the hipfire spread. This will often come in handy, as your bipod will bug out or you'll need to clear a room full of enemies by yourself. Especially due to your very decent fire rate, you can easily kill multiple players if you got no other option left to you. Keep in mind though, that your fire rate is not as good as the MG42's. If you have previously used the MG42, you might overestimate your own abilities with the hipfire, as has happened to me during my playtime with the VGO. All of that said, do not underestimate its power. It is a very potent weapon at close range, but don't make it a habit to rely on the hipfire either. It is still very inaccurate. Overall, the VGO is very likely going to be one of the staple weapons of Battlefield 5 going forward, just as the MG42 is, due to its sheer power and how much fun the MMGs are to use. As such, if you happen to find yourself on the opposite side of the barrel of a VGO, here are some quick tips. Try to flank the gunner and hope he hasn't watched this video, so he stays in one spot and leaves his flanks wide open. Remember that you can always throw a grenade to flush them out as well. Machine gunners aren't that dangerous if they have to run, after all. Lastly, try to pre-fire the spot while you round the corner. MG gunners can't really change their positions mid-fight, and as such you can easily guesstimate where the MG gunner's head may be. With those last few tips for playing against the VGO, I've concluded my guide. I hope it was informative and you learned something from it that you can apply to your own game. Please let me know if I missed anything, or you would have wanted me to talk about anything in specific that I might not have covered. Also, let me know what your personal favorite loadouts are in the comments down below. Furthermore, let me know if you'd like to see me cover a particular weapon in the support or assault kit, or other kits later down the line. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like or dislike button, and check me out over on twitch.tv/LunarWolf. You can find a link to my stream down below in the description as well, where I usually record the footage for these guides. And with that, thanks for watching, and keep dropping those ammo pouches.